there. I'm so excited to discuss with you John 11 about Lazarus and his life. There's so many people in this passage. There's so much that can be spoken about this story. This is a story of resurrection and life. It starts with a man named Lazarus, who's from Bethany. He's got two sisters, Mary and Martha, and he becomes ill. And we get to know Mary and Martha in actually Luke 10, where Jesus comes to their home, and Martha prepares her home and serves the meal, and Mary sits at Jesus' feet. And if you want to look into that story, that's how we get to know them first. And there's a whole, dialogue between Jesus and Martha resenting Mary, and Jesus telling Martha that sitting at my feet is the most important place to be. But now we enter this story, and I am just fascinated and I'm amazed by Martha. Like never before, actually. You see, Jesus loved Mary and Martha and Lazarus. He was a very good friend of theirs. And when their brother got ill, Mary and Martha sent for Jesus. And Jesus stayed a couple extra days longer, which seems like such an unloving friend. But he is about his Father's will, not about the will of his friends. And so once again, we see where Jesus' timing is perfect, but it doesn't feel perfect at all. In fact, for Mary and Martha, their world has just been rocked. And so 2 days go by, and Jesus says to his disciples, okay, let's go back to Judea. And the disciples say, wait a minute here. You were just about to be stoned there. Why would you go there? And Jesus discusses another wordplay between day and night. And I'm not sure what that means. I'm going to look into that more. But right now I really want to focus on the fact that he went despite the current political circumstances in which he was facing. And he went and arrived to the village 4 days after Lazarus dies. And Martha, anticipating his arrival, meets him before he gets to the village and says some powerful words. Says to him in verse 17 and on, now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been dead and in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, and Mary remained seated at the house. So Martha goes out to meet Jesus, and Mary stays in the home. And Martha says to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But she didn't stop there. And this is my biggest catch for this passage today. But even now is what she said. But even now I know whatever you ask from God, God will give to you. And Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. And Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the end days, in the resurrection on the last days. But Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he dies, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this, Martha? And she said, yes, Lord, I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. And so I'm so touched and amazed by Martha's faith, that her brother, her most beloved brother, has been dead for 4 days. She knows that Jesus could have healed him. She knows that Jesus could have kept her brother from dying, but Jesus chose not to. There's a depth of belief here that is so powerful, and it's my hope and my prayer that we would believe in such a way that Martha has. But even now I know, what are you facing right now that you can say, but even though I know you can do the impossible, but even now I know that you love me, but even now I know that you will forgive me. Even now I know that you are God. And what are you facing that you can say those words? Because God is just there waiting and wanting you to believe in him in your now. And I know our now right now is contaminated by a virus. I know our now is contaminated with such uncertainty. Can we step out in faith and say those words as Martha? So Jesus hears her, and then he goes with her back to into the village. He asks, where is he? Where have you laid him? And so they go to the tomb. And by this time, Mary has joined them. By this time, Mary has wept. The Jewish people have wept. And Jesus is deeply moved and troubled. He is so compassionate. He is moved by our tears. And in our even now, we can weep openly with our God. And so Jesus moved again, went to the tomb. He asked for that stone to be moved. And in the reality of the flesh, Martha says a fleshly statement of, but if we move that stone, it's gonna stink. And Jesus said, didn't I say that if you believe me? Yes, I believe you. And Jesus, they moved the stone, and Jesus prayed, and he thanked God for hearing him, even though he knows that God always hears him. He knows that the people need to hear. The people need to hear that the Father always hears you. And then he commands Lazarus to come out. And the man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips. His face was wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Oh, wow. Let us believe in our resurrection in the life. Let him be our resurrection in life. Of course, he has created, he has healed Lazarus. Lazarus has risen from the dead, but it's also pointing to the ultimate resurrection of Jesus Christ. We are in Holy Week at this point. In our day and age, but we are heading into the scriptures of the Holy Week. It has created such a dynamic where there is now a plot for Jesus's death, and we are headed into Passover, and the chief priests and Pharisees have now given orders that anyone, if they know where Jesus is, inform them because they want to arrest him. And so let's believe like never before in our even now. Even now, will we know that our Jesus is the resurrection in the life with whatever we're facing today. I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you will seek him with all your heart today. Read on to John 12, and we will go into the triumphant entry tomorrow. Take care and have a great day.